you see it every day. I feel like when I'm driving, I see people driving or walking, and I'm like, everyone's in pain. Everyone's, has a wounded inner child if they haven't done their work, if they haven't done the really painful inner work. And it takes, like I was saying, a lot of awareness, a lot of consciousness, sometimes friends, sometimes your partner, sometimes, yourself, sometimes a therapist. So eventually I came around to face the fact that I needed some help.
Right.
And I did that, and I did the work, and it's really what helped me stick to my purpose of, this is the work that I'm gonna do. And
Yeah.
since I did it myself and I know what it did for me,
Correct.
of course I was gonna do it. It was like my mission. How could I not? This is a message that everyone needs. This is a message that the world needs. You can heal.
Welcome back to the Win with Love podcast, where our purpose and message is to do everything from a place of love. And one of my hugest purposes is to make sure we bring on guests that are doing things to add value to the world, that have professions or just messages to share with the world that would definitely add value and change people's lives. Today, I get to share this stage with Martha Samuel. She is actually a colleague and a great friend who has focused her career on mental health, and she brings several topics to the table. She brings a niche in reparenting, and just a few of her concepts have really just taken me overboard, and I definitely wanted to share them with you. I think they'll definitely add value to you, and you're going to learn a lot from our episode today. So welcome, Martha. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm super excited. Yes.
Me too.
We've known each other for a couple of years, and we've been through a few things together personally and professionally, and I can't wait to share her message with you today. So tell me a little bit about who Martha is, a little bit about your practice, and just a little bit about that spice that you have.
Yes. So I'm Martha. When you ask me that, the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a mental health therapist, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. But it really doesn't, it's part of what defines who I am, but I also like to have fun. I like to help other people. I enjoy, comedy, dancing. So it's a loaded question. Who are you? But I think, yes, I love to help other people. I love to be a mom. I love to be a wife, be a daughter, be a sister, be a friend. It's sort of all that encompasses really who I am.
I love how you encompass the answer to that question, telling me about all the roles that you embody. I think that a lot of us, when we're asked who we are, sometimes we are defined by our careers alone. And who we are is more than that, right? It's the mom, it is a therapist, it is also the sister, wife, etc. And so today I want to get to know a little bit more about that therapist in you. I want to get to know about how Martha Samuel therapy came about, and a little bit about your journey.
Yes, so Martha Samuel therapy, it took me a few years to really figure out where I wanted to go in my career, what I wanted to do. I struggled finding out, do I want to go on my own? Do I want to do private practice? I was your supervisee for a long time. So it took me a while, but eventually I came around and I decided I want to be able to help people on my own terms. I want to do it my way. I don't want to be, tied down to any company or corporation or any type of group therapy setting.
Yeah.
So I sort of went on my own, developed my own program, my own way of doing therapy, and it took me a few months, and you helped me a lot with it. You helped me get there. You pushed me. it's part of our friendship, our relationship, but it was great. And now I practice from Hollywood, Florida. I help other people, find themselves, figure out where their pain is coming from, how to heal, how to move forward in life, how to improve their relationships, how to improve the meaning of who they are, how to find their purpose. And it's really my purpose. It's really my calling.
You just mentioned something that's truly interesting, and I think it just really caught my eye. You mentioned helping someone find the meaning of who they are. So when I think about that, I think about like self-love. I think about our own purpose and calling. But what would you define that as, or how does that look like in therapy? How do we help someone do that?
Those are great descriptions of who we are, and it goes back to the question that you asked me, who am I? But for someone who is struggling to find their way through life or their relationship, and they're really lost into, what am I doing? What am I struggling with? Where's my pain coming from? Why am I sad all the time? Why do I have panic attacks? Why am I anxious? It's really, they don't have a root of where is this coming from. So going back to their childhood, going back to the way they were raised, or the things that they saw, or the parenting style that they experienced, even the definitions of love that they saw and witnessed, that's what makes us who we are, what we see, what we learn from our childhood. If that's incongruent with how you feel right now, if that's incongruent with the relationship you want to have, then that just you feel that you're not in alignment with who you are, or you feel like there's something wrong. Where's the missing link? And that's really what it comes down to. Who are we? What are we here for? Where do we come from? Where are we going? What's our purpose? And or you go back into finding
your true self,
your authentic self.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And you talked a little bit about, just right now in that description, about the love that we've experienced.
Yes.
As a child, or I guess our definitions of love based on what we've seen or our experiences, right? So I can assume here, and of course we're both in the mental health field, but I don't necessarily niche in your area. And so what we have seen or we experienced as a child, that definition of love, how does that affect us as we're growing up? What is your take on that? It
totally defines what we expect from love, how we show love, what we're exposed to. So think about a child who experiences a parent who tells them they love him one day, and then the next day they're punishing him for something very minimal, or something that it wasn't their fault. It's a little inconsistent. So that child is gonna feel that love brings chaos, that love brings anxiety. Also, a child who was whose parent was an alcoholic or an addict, that is they're gonna be experiencing love in a way that it's not truly congruent with what's real, because that is their reality. That's what they're gonna be exposed to, so they don't know anything else and anything different from that. So therefore their relationships will be around chaos, they will be around inconsistency, they will not be authentic to who they truly are.
Right, which I would think, authentically, we don't want to be in chaos. We should want to be in peace or in harmony or content with ourselves. Human beings, as we know, are relational people, so we don't thrive in isolation. We actually thrive with relationships. And so when our relationships, as you're describing, are chaotic or they're not favorable, then we end up, I'm assuming, leading into different sorts of different detriments, right?
Abusive relationships, narcissistic relationships, anything that it's not, secure and peaceful and loving.
Right. So, I ask all these questions, and I know we're getting to know you a little bit more, but I wanted to go into that because I know that the concept that we're going to be talking about today is reparenting. And I know this concept is also very dear to you. I mean, you've niched in this area on purpose. And not to get too personal, but I want to know a little bit about how Martha became the therapist, right? So I know a lot of us, when we pick this career choice, we pick it for many different reasons. So personally, I picked it for personal reasons and things that I saw growing up that I felt people needed help with. And so I wanted to be a contributor to that population or whatnot. So if you want to share a little bit about what had you choose therapy, and then go into why, let's say, reparenting or this, all these topics of helping clients get through these things. How did you get here?
I think it really goes back to my childhood. It was very inconsistent, very not in alignment with who my parents were. I grew up with in a family where everyone was a professional. They were both doctors, so they were not home a lot. I was going to school by myself. There was this pressure that I needed to thrive, but on my own. So it was, I struggled, and I had expectations, or they had expectations for me, and I felt like I had to live to those expectations. And I guess, then it came divorce and traumas and events that sort of felt like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on around me? Why, then I put all that focus into my school, my grades, coming to the United States. I was born in Cuba. We came when I was 10 years old. So all of that, just putting that energy and that mindset into my schoolwork, put aside what was my mental health, my emotions, how did I feel about it? When you're a child, no one's asking you, how do you feel about your parents' divorce? How do you feel that your mom is working so hard, or it's never home, or that your father is no longer in the household? So, those questions were never asked. Those questions were never brought up. And then I went through childhood, teenage years, part of my adulthood, just feeling like I'm not in alignment. Something's off, something's missing. What's going on? Why am I putting all this energy into school? What am I doing it for? Is this what I really want? And then I went into college. I finished high school, I got into college, and I just started, reading a lot, going into a little bit of self-development, personal development, and I started learning more of what I wanted to do, the things that I wanted to do in my life. And one of the things that I remember telling myself was, I want to have a family, but I want to be there for my kids. The purpose of me having, growing my family was so that I could do better, so that my kids were not going to suffer what I suffered, or what my mother suffered, what her mother suffered. So we wouldn't have that wound. So going into that path, it led me into mental health and psychology classes in college. And I became fascinated by just learning about how our mind works, and just learning how to cope with things, and where are we going wrong, what to do differently, how to find the meaning of healing, how to heal, how to be ourselves, how to do better, how to get better, because I do believe it's all interconnected.
Right. And so that concept of healing, I know we read a lot about that on the internet and Instagram and different social medias and stuff. And so I can imagine, just by hearing your story, by the way, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Didn't have to do that. Just listening to that story, I can just imagine you, when you said I was thriving or I was surviving, as a therapist, I would think that's a trauma response,
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming too, there's a lot of clients or people that you would see in therapy that can show up similar. I know that when we are resilient individuals, when we don't get what we need from the place we're supposed to get it from, then we either go get it somewhere else, or we thrive and we become that.
Yes.
Right? So I'm thinking here of the client that became and did exactly what you did, right? You thrived, you went to college, you just made it through. It doesn't matter that you got or you didn't get from your parents, but I cannot help but to think it feels a bit exhausting, right? After some time.
Mm-hmm.
So someone seeking healing from that, what would be your message, or how do you kind of, I guess, start to help? I know it's a process, but
Mm-hmm.
how do we start to help someone seeking healing from that? I'm assuming using the reparenting concept.
That's a very good question. So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. It takes a lot of awareness, because if you see that you are being successful in school, in your career, in your job, you're not going to think there's anything wrong. You're
Right.
going to feel like things are going right. What's going on? So you're not going to think that it was anything related to your childhood. You're not going to go back and think, maybe I experienced this, or I never processed this trauma, or I had an excellent childhood. Why would I? There was
Right.
nothing happened, nothing significant. So what we do is we sort of suppress all these emotions. We put them away. We cover them. We go through life, and then all of a sudden, boom, they just come out, or they manifest in our relationships, in our friendships, in areas that we don't expect them to. And that is what happened in my case. I know you said like you don't know these things, but about me, but yeah. So when I started noticing that my marriage was struggling with, my sense of self, like who am I in this marriage? What am I doing? What's going on that I don't feel like I'm in alignment into who I am, or I'm not at peace with who I am. Then it came about, okay, you haven't done any inner work. You haven't really healed. How did you process this? How did you process that event? And when that came about, and I was learning in school, and I was, just studying and having all these questions, and there was, at that point in my life, there was no one from, my family of origin around to really help me, or I didn't feel like I could open up to anyone at that point. Then I started, just doing the work on my own. And I feel that it's really the turning point for my clients when they get to the moment that they feel something is not right, something feels wrong. I'm in this relationship and everything is going right, but I'm not happy. I have all this success in my life, in my career, but something's missing. We see it a lot in celebrities. They are in rehab because of depression. We see it a lot in addiction also. We see a lot of successful people suffering from addiction because, again, I do believe that addiction is a sort of an answer or an escape from our traumas. We're numbing our pain. We don't numb it, or I wasn't numbing it with drugs or alcohol or substances. I was numbing it with staying busy. You're gonna be successful. You're gonna do good in school. You're gonna create your own family. So
it's almost like we compensate for what we didn't have.
Yes.
And we say, well, I didn't get this, so I'm gonna get that. And I'm gonna be really good at this because I couldn't be good at that. And from what I'm hearing is that if we catch ourselves doing that, we definitely can become aware of something being off if we're compensating one for the other. I think awareness is the first thing that starts everything. If you become aware, if you have some insight to something, then we can do something about it, or you can seek the help that you need if you have no idea where to go from there.
Also, a friend could tell you, or someone who loves you can be like, hey, what's going on? You don't seem like yourself. Why don't you think about doing this? Why don't you think about seeking some help? Because sometimes we're so caught up into, I have to do this, or I'm so busy with all these other things around me, that we don't have the awareness to realize something's off. And when someone else, if we're lucky enough to have someone else in our environment that is able to tell us, this is going on, or what's going on with this, look into this.
Yeah, and so I think there was a concept you talked about, and we were talking about trauma. So some of these experiences could have seemed traumatic to someone and now scarred them, like not getting what they needed from their parents or coming from a chaotic home or or actually you're being exposed to, sometimes it's domestic violence in your home. You just never know. And so going back to the concept of what we believe love to be because of what we saw, that could lead us into relationship issues in the present as adults, because we become accepted to the chaos, or we become accepted to the disrespect or whatnot, and we're not doing this out of like willful. It's not like, yes, I want to be abused, like no one thinks like that, right?
Yes.
But then we find ourselves in situations that are unfavorable, and we're trapped, right? Sometimes we're trapped because we have children, financial issues. I mean, there's so much
It's very common
that comes from that. And so when we start to recognize what I would call familiar is this area that I tend to be in. There's a pattern of behavior that leads me there, and we're leading ourselves to unfamiliar, which unfamiliar doesn't have to be bad. It could just be what you're not used to, So tell me a little bit about, I'm sure you've done much work with clients on this.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the biggest struggles clients have going from, let's say, the familiar to the unfamiliar?
So let's say a client that keeps going back to their toxic relationship. They don't know any better. They don't know anything else. This is all they know. So they're going to keep going back to the relationship, to the abusive relationship, to the pain, because they don't know what's out there. They don't know what else is there. And this is something that they can control. They already know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
So not knowing, it's the uncertainty, it's
right.
sometimes worse than what we already know. So we know we're going to expect the abuse. We know to expect the verbal profanities or whatever it is that we're experiencing, but we don't really know what it's like to have a peaceful relationship, or what it's like to have a safe relationship in a safe environment, or love or care. So we sort of create this association of love with chaos, with pain, with we create it as normal.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I saw growing up. There's nothing else. This is what's the norm. And when someone else, or even ourselves, we're able to become aware of, this is not right. I shouldn't be in a relationship where I'm being abused, or I shouldn't feel like this in my marriage, or in my friendships, or with my family. Then that's your first sign. You've become aware that there's something off.
Right.
From there, you could start your own research. You could start reading. You could start,
So once a client becomes aware of this, right? So, and even taking it from your experience, right? Because it seems like there's a lot of work you've done personally,
right,
to grow from what you saw to what you now know is your new familiar, right? So going from, well, this is normal, but it's not good for me, so I'm going to create a new normal, right? So what is the biggest, what was the biggest turning point for you? Like, what got you to say, shoot, like, I think I need to make some changes if I want my life to change? And then that led you obviously down the path of growth.
I think my friends, I think my husband, I realized that I could do better, I could be better. There was areas in my life where I could improve.
Mm-hmm.
As a mom, I knew that I could be a much better mom. I didn't have to be so angry. I didn't have to be so upset. And really, I didn't even know where the anger was coming from. I didn't know what was I so upset about. I was giving my children what I didn't have. But maybe it was that I didn't get that. Maybe it was that I wasn't resilient enough, or I wasn't happy enough, or they could have done better for me. So this anger and this agony that I was having, it wasn't coming from a place of healing and a place of love. It was coming from a place of pain. And it was that the anger and the sadness that I had suppressed for so many years. And you see it every day. I feel like when I'm driving, I see people driving or walking, and I'm like, everyone's in pain. Everyone's, has a wounded inner child if they haven't done their work, if they haven't done the really painful inner work. And it takes, like I was saying, a lot of awareness, a lot of consciousness, sometimes friends, sometimes your partner, sometimes, yourself, sometimes a therapist. So eventually I came around to face the fact that I needed some help.
Right.
And I did that, and I did the work, and it's really what helped me stick to my purpose of, this is the work that I'm gonna do. And
Yeah.
since I did it myself and I know what it did for me,
Correct.
of course I was gonna do it. It was like my mission. How could I not? This is a message that everyone needs. This is a message that the world needs. You can heal.
Yes.
You don't have to be like this. You don't have to be busy all the time. You don't have to feel like you have to be so overwhelmed, or you can do it. Yes, you can do it all, but you can do it all from a place of healing and love and just peace.
So, I get excited, right? I get excited with you talking about stuff like this because to me, in my mind, it's like giving hope to some folks who think their situation will never change. I will never get rid of this pain. I carry this pain with me and I'm burdened with it. And I went through whatever I went through in my childhood, and this is just part of who I am. And that's not correct, in my opinion. We have the ability and the choice to make change and make positive change and effective change. And we don't have to stay exactly where we are. We have a choice, which is what I hear from what you were saying.
Absolutely.
So when the awareness came, and whether that came from self or friends or whatever it is, and we saw what was not in alignment, and we noticed something's off, then now the next step is like we have a choice to make. Do we want to continue to carry this with us, or do we want to let it go? And what does the letting go, right, look like? So I took a couple notes that Martha had shared with me about reparenting. And so there's a concept of self-reparenting. So I'm guessing this comes into the therapy work and some of that painful inner healing that we're talking about.
Yes.
So what's one component of self-reparenting or something someone's going to be doing?
So in my practice, I like to start with joy. I like to start with, okay, let's find your inner child. Let's find, let's say Maggie. What does little Maggie like to do? What spikes her curiosity? What does she like to do for fun? Does she like to paint? Does she like to dance? Because the work is going to be so painful, so intense. You're going to have triggers everywhere.
Yeah.
And I always want the client, the person, to go back to be able to find their joy. So let's say we have a tough session and the person was crying, or there was a moment where it was too much to endure. I would always take them back. Okay, now let's work on your joy. Remember, what brings you joy? So that's one aspect that I like to start with. From there, I go into discipline and, let's work on that inner child. And
Right.
I almost give all of them this homework of writing as your inner child, writing as little 5-year-old Martha or 7-year-old Dominic who experienced, some painful, traumatic experience. So that's all part of healing, of
Yeah.
going through the process of remembering. I notice also that a lot of my clients don't have a lot of memories. They sort of they compartmentalize those memories so much that they can't even find them. They can't go back and find them.
It's like a blur.
In a way,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so tell me about your parents' divorce, or tell me about, the sexual trauma or the sexual abuse, or, what happened. And they don't remember, which it's normal. It's survival, it's part of our survival mechanism. Once I get them to put it in paper, once I get them to start writing about it,
Yeah.
it opens up. It creates a whole scenario where you start remembering what happened, how did it happen, what I felt like, what I smelled, what I saw, what I felt on my skin. So I try to guide them through all of that. I try to give them that homework to do at home, and then bring it into the session so we can process it together. And then, towards the end, okay, let's reparent that child. Let's reparent that little person. Let's reparent little Maggie. What could we say to her? What should she have heard from her parent that she didn't?
Right.
So let's give her that. And during the sessions, the client is able to say, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, or I'm sorry I didn't protect you. You're gonna be okay. With some clients, I do a little bit of EMDR to sort of work through some traumas. And then I do, the breathing, I also do shaking and dancing, where we just,
shaking and dancing.
Shaking and dancing.
What is that?
We'll
Is
do
literally?
it real good at the end, yes. So it's just, to get our energy out, and it's a way to give hope. It's a way to get hope, to find the hope. So I do that with some of them. I like to do that with my couples also.
Definitely wanted to stop you right there because with relationships, I know a lot of things show up as we are, especially in romantic relationships. A lot of our traumas and things that we have had that are unhealed from our past will show, and not necessarily in a form that we'll know it's there, but there will be signs. So going back to the topic at hand, the reparenting, what is your experience of how someone in a romantic relationship may see that they have a need for reparenting, and to heal that inner pain that you were talking about?
That's very common, because usually we see the signs as they manifest into our relationships that we have, inner child or reparenting difficulties. So let's say, for example, anxious attachment and sex.
Yeah.
So let's say an anxious attached individual will look for sex for validation, for reassurance. They would utilize sex as a way to, make the relationship more consistent, or make the person feel like they need them. So they use sex as a way to control the relationship because of their inconsistent parenting, because of their anxious style, because of how their childhood trauma it's manifesting into their adult relationship.
Yeah.
Therefore, that's where you see, okay, why am I seeking this person for sex when I really just, want to have a connection with them? So they confuse this sexual connection with proximity. They want to get closer to the person, but they use sex as a weapon to get closer to them. So that's one of the ways to realize something's off. What is my inner child telling me?
Right.
And in that moment, you become aware of it. Why am I seeking this person for sex? Why do I feel like I need reassurance or validation from them? Why am I utilizing them? Why am I utilizing sex to feel that they need me, or feel like I need to be needed by them? So that's one of the ways that reparenting or inner child wound can be manifested into our adult relationships, like sex.
And I feel like that's so common. We don't necessarily maybe label it that way, but it's so common to be like, I need this person in my life, or I'm not okay without this person in my life. And so often, yes, we do put that into sex and the connection that it brings, right? Or the exhilarating feeling that it brings, or how it fills this void that we have. But we're not looking at it as a void. We're just looking at it as like, I need them in my life. And so if I got this, if I have the concepts correct in my mind, it's also not about needing, let's say, someone, but being whole first, so that then you can engage in a relationship in a healthy way, and understanding that the gap that's there may be, you need attention towards that gap for inner healing. Yes. Versus, if you find yourself attaching, right, to a person where there's a need for them versus just a want, that might be a sign. Does that sound accurate?
Absolutely, yes. So it's that desire, or the need to feel wanted, to feel desired, to feel validated, reassured. So that comes from a place of lack. Yes. Or it comes from a place of, I have a need that it wasn't met when I was a child, and I'm using this person or this sexual act to fill that need. Yeah. So let's reframe that. Let's go deeper. Why do I feel that? What wasn't met during my childhood? How can I fix that? Where can I go? What's the issue here?
Right. And I feel like, to kind of sum it up, it all comes back to the self.
Yes.
Right? So are we self-loving? What do we need to do? Look in that mirror and look at ourselves and see, okay, well, we have this here, we have this missing link here, let's work on that. Let's give that to ourselves before we're even seeking it in someone else to give it to us.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
I think that, I mean, it's an amazing topic that we had here today. I think a lot of people don't know enough about reparenting and psychotherapy and trauma and everything we've touched upon. We definitely have a lot more to talk about that we can, put into like 30, 45 minutes. But I want to thank you for coming here, for sharing your knowledge, for giving that knowledge to the world and all of our viewers and listeners. And so I want to ask you, where can people find you in case they have any questions, concerns, or maybe they do want to see you as a therapist?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to sit here and just open up to you and share my message. People can find me on social media, on Instagram, Martha Samuel Therapy, or marthasamueltherapy.com.
Awesome. And one last question before you go. What is your message to the world? If you could say anything to anyone, what is that one message you would love to give?
You are loved. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be heard. And the world needs that unique and special gift that only you have.
Thank you so much, Martha, for coming and for being part of the Win with Love podcast. We would definitely love to have you back. And thank you so much to our viewers and listeners. We love you, and I hope this message added value to you, which is our overall purpose. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.